Hello to the chicos and the chicas. This is Mr. Told You So, who tweeted during round 3 that Ding Liren has finally shown up. He is a different man, he is a different player, more confident, more focused. He is now there to show that he is indeed a real contender for the title. And today in round 4, he actually went a step further and produced a really marvelous game. I really can't resist the temptation to say, but I was very delighted to see the Dinglish opening popping up instead of the really dodgy H3 shenanigans. So this is the English, one of Ding's favorites. And in fact, I guess it takes a little bit of a courage to play the English against Nepo, because Ding did lose a very famous game against Ian Nepomniachtchi before, not in this World Championship match, but in the English, and so he must have had some bitter memories, but nonetheless, he went back to his beloved opening, and boy, did it pay dividends. We are going to follow theory, and I will have a very interesting tidbit about said theory just in a moment. I really like this e4 idea, by the way, which gives an entirely different character to the position from the perhaps more logical looking d4, in which case both bishop g4 and castles allow black to play a very easy game, where the pawn structure allows the black bishop to be a relevant piece, and obviously the absence of the dark squared bishop is not that badly felt because of the pawn chain. But with pawn e4, all of a sudden Ding is announcing his desire to conquer the entirety of the center and to go in for a very serious head-on fight. And head-on fight it became very early on. Knight h5, d4, knight f4, and this is where we need to credit now Team Ding. And I'm not sure if Team Nepo was aware of this, but this is actually a position from a game by Richard Rapport, no less, who is now, as it is well known, the number one, maybe the only one actually, second of Ding Liren. So they have done their homework, man, and that's very impressive. Now, needless to say that our good friend Rapport here uncorked the totally crazy h4. I mean, crazy by my standards, absolutely regular by Richard Rapport's standards, but that kind of stuff was never gonna fly for a World Championship match. So this is where they improved the game and went for the completely regular and standard castles move, and so from this point on we are out of book. Now the position according to the machine is dead even, but then again it is borderline impossible to not to be dead even as long as you play a decent opening with both colors. However, the position is exciting and it's imbalanced. And the second word is the key, because remember, I told you earlier that this was the strategy of Team Magnus, not to get a opening advantage, but to get playable positions. Now, what it means to have playable positions, of course, varies from player to player. What is playable for Maggie may not be too appealing to Ding, and vice versa. But I think that this position really suited the style of the Chinese GM, who gradually managed to build up the momentum. And after knight d2, I think this was one of the key moments of the game. And I think that if hindsight was a good advisor, it certainly is. I think this is my time to use it to the best of my ability. I think b6, to take the sting out of the c5 push and to take the sail out of White's wings all together with the various pawn pushes in the center, would have been a far more prudent way to play. And only then, get fancy with queen h6 or rook d8. It's probably a very logical move to play next. And, it is very difficult to make anything happen in a position like this. But knight a5 was really asking for it, and Ding obviously went for this marvelous positional pawn sacrifice that changed the character of the position dramatically. Needless to say, the engine still says equal. So the idea is to lure the pawn away from the center, and in fact from the central d file as well, so that the white pawns can roll in and take the place of the black pawns and create a completely dominating pawn formation in the center, covering all these squares. On top of that, the knight on a5 is miserably placed. Nowhere to go. So that is definitely an outsider. And as such, black is now under some unpleasant pressure. And I think this pressure eventually got to Nepo when he made that rather ugly blunder. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's see how the game went. Rook d8, c4, perfectly sensible. b6 and h3. Trying to get a tempo on the bishop, kicking it out, creating a luft for the king. That is all a-okay. And bishop e4. Now, I don't know, bishop e4 obviously is a very, very logical move. It feels a bit weird to disconnect the rook from the pawn, but of course rook takes e5 is not playable due to bishop takes h7, and we pick off the rook. So this is actually completely fine. Obviously at times there is an idea to trade bishops with bishop f3. Rook e7, king wins e3, covering the pawn, rook e8 and bishop f3. So the regroup has happened. And what's really interesting, in my opinion, about this position is the fact that the trade of the bishops, in my opinion, in general, in this position, seems to favor white. And for that reason, I reckon that about here-ish, or maybe even earlier, maybe here, a move like bishop g6 seems to make a lot of sense to me. In fact, maybe even before knight b7. Let's try bishop g6 here. And just sit there and wait for white to reveal what they want to do. Because it's not really that easy to make any kind of progress with white, excuse me, especially given that the bishop controls a fair few important squares on the diagonal. Maybe that was a better way to go, I don't know. But what I certainly felt, and even here, I somehow felt like, yeah, this bishop was, I think, a needed piece. The black position feels very, very cramped. I will give you that 100%. But even now, I feel like this bishop, it just does nothing. It's such a lame piece. I do not want to trade it. And I think that the fact that Nepo allowed this trade also contributed to the soon to come blunder. But still we must acknowledge the fact that white is only marginally better. The pawns obviously restrict the rooks dramatically, but they also close off the files. So it's not so easy to get through. And remember that in the end of the day, black is still a pawn to the good. So in order to crack this position open, we'll have to do some heavy lifting. But as luck would have it, after queen h6, queen f3, Nepo blundered. And what's very interesting about this, and the commentators did not fail to spot this tendency in Nepo's play, that Nepo tends to occasionally get a little bit complacent. And when that happens, he also tends to play a little bit faster than what most people would feel is warranted. And so here he blundered a very basic concept on their level, that is. And that is that after rook d4, c d4, knight b3 is just simply terminal. What he overlooked, of course, was not rook d4. It was the follow-up idea of knight d2 and knight d4. And even there is a beautiful touch, which is the fact that here c5 is not playable due to d6. And after rook takes e6, we have got multiple winning moves. The simplest one is rook takes e6, rook takes e6, and queen d5, or even d7 actually wins because of the check. So this is just not playable at all. I just noticed something. After rook d6 we have check, yeah? I mean, that's by no means a bit. Okay, we have got mate in 2. But that was just such a lovely motive that the queen can't prevent the pawn promotion. Okay, sorry, that was just my goofy moment. But anyway, the point is that, yeah, after knight b3, there is no c5. And if there is no c5, this knight is gonna go and do tremendous damage. The last chance for Nepo to stay in the game, in fact, to keep equality, would have been g4, when after g5, excuse me, when after g4, although en passant is not possible because the pawn is pinned, but after knight d6, rook e2, it's still very far from being apparent how white can make any headway here to prove that we have an advantage. Maybe we should look to leave the rook on prey, I don't know, but the engine claims that black has enough defenders to cover up all the soft spots in the position. So yeah, I mean, how often do you see that it's a very tragic one move blunder in a position where just a little bit of caution would have been sufficient to identify the dangers lurking around with rook d4 and the fact that g5 comfortably holds. Very, very strange blunder, and Ding was very quick to seize his chance, and after takes knight d4, essentially there was nothing else left in the position to play for. Nepo played g5, knight d4, and then queen g6, trying to patch up that chronically weak f5 square, but of course Ding went like, yeah, nah mate, that's mine. g4, take, and the subsequent g4 if needed can guarantee that the knight gets the f5 square. Knight f5, and yeah, from here on out these pieces are tragically jammed in and have no future whatsoever. The rest is just agony, but Ding converted in a very spectacular fashion with d6, a lovely move utilizing the knight distance between rook and queen, so knight d6 is going to fork those two pieces. Epic stuff. Now rook e7 is not playable because the queen hangs with check, and if the queen takes on e7, then we utilize the x-ray motif by taking on e8, and the queen is guarding e8, so white is a piece up here. Nepo played the more tenacious queen g8, but of course there was not a lot of joy to be had in this position, and after a couple of more moves the game was resigned. Queen f8 here just results in white converting the extra pawn and winning the game, and the smile on my face tells you that I'm mostly delighted for Ding's victory because it opened up the competition again. And now it's anyone's game, anyone's tournament to win. A super exciting 10 games ahead of us, and I guess we can safely say that now it does look like a 50-50. It no longer looks like Nepo is a clear favorite. He really has some bouncing back to do, and obviously Ding is now feeling like $1 million. So yeah, again, the rest day comes at a very needed time, but this time round for the Russian, very excited to see what round 5 is going to bring. So please make sure that you stay with me because I'm going to present those games for you as well. As for now, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to sub, to like, to comment, and to super thank me if you can, and I will be back with the next very soon. Bye.